Yes, I am filming this before the Knicks game tonight on Friday night, game 2 against the Indiana Pacers, because if you lose one game, that's fine. If you lose 2 games at home, yes, I will crash out, and I probably would have a different tone for this video, and I don't want to be a negative Nancy all the time, so I'm trying to remain upbeat by filming this video on Friday night. But we have some interesting news and rumors coming out involving the Nintendo Switch 2, something that shouldn't really be a huge surprise to people, but I kind of want to explore the topic anyways, because I think there is some reason to believe that this is indeed going to happen. Now, obviously, the Nintendo Switch 2 is releasing on June 5th. I will have literally a metric ton of coverage on this thing. We're going to be looking at the system, games, accessories, free upgrades, paid upgrades, all sorts of fun stuff. So make sure you hit that subscribe button if you are looking forward to the Nintendo Switch 2 or just indeed curious about it. But you kind of got to look at what is happening with this system and then look a little bit further, because it feels like we have this large wave of games on day one, but then kind of a little bit after that, it seems to dip off of a cliff a little bit as far as at least what we know about. We know about Mario Kart World, Cyberpunk 2077, Street Fighter 6, Fast Fusion. We know about Donkey Kong Bonanza taking place in the month of July, but it seems like there's still a lot of questions about Donkey Kong Bonanza as far as, you know, what's this game really about? We kind of know that a lot of it has to do with kind of digging your own path and exploring your own way, but what exactly are we exploring? What all are we doing in this world? Why are we in this world? So on and so forth. It almost feels like, well, you might need to have a Nintendo Direct. And that's where things start to get very interesting, because allegedly on Friday afternoon, Pornhub Brazil, or PH Brazil as he's known in some different places, just mentioned on a live stream that there will be a Direct on the Switch 2 launch week or a week after. Now, this is coming to us from Family Boards. There are several different people that also saw him say it on a live stream. This hit, Gaming Leaks and Rumors Reddit. So it's pretty much all over the place. This is indeed something that did occur. And PH Brazil, I mean, he has a pretty good track record. You know, I like to joke about some of these leakers like Nash Weedle, and what was that one dude who had a website and then he disappeared off the face of the planet? He like took shots at me too. Oh man, I can't remember his name. I think it had something to do with Star Fox, but PH Brazil has been pretty spot on with quite a few things. Now, there have been misses along the way as well, but I think just in a timeline sense, if you take into account what we just kind of talked about, I think it makes sense for there to be a June Nintendo Direct. First and foremost, the most important thing is there usually is a June Nintendo Direct. Although you have a system coming out on June 5th, I still think you have a lot of things to talk about when it comes to setting up several different games. You look at a game like Donkey Kong Country Bonanza, or Donkey Kong Bonanza, like we just talked about. Yeah, we know a decent amount of stuff, but I still feel like there's a whole bunch more to know about. But even if you just look at it from a first-party Nintendo perspective, the Kirby Air Ride game is supposed to come out this year. Metroid Prime 4 still does not have a release date. So what better place to talk about Metroid Prime 4 than at this event? I feel like it would happen the week after, though. If I had to place any sorts of bets on when I expect it to happen, I would say it would be the week after, because now you have people with the system in hand. They're able to play some games, and you're able to, kind of gauge what people's interests are with this system, but also set up the next wave of releases, because I definitely feel like Nintendo's going to have more games this first year for the system. You got to remember, we kept hearing all of this sort of stuff about delays for the Switch 2 because Nintendo wanted to bolster its first-party lineup. And yeah, there's been some really cool stuff that's been announced and revealed, but even if you take away Metroid Prime 4, you're kind of just left with Kirby Air Ride, which I'm sure will be fine, Mario Kart World, which will be a big game, and Donkey Kong Bonanza. What does that mean, though, for the holiday season? Your first holiday season for a video game console is very important, and I think that Nintendo has a bit more up their sleeve than what they have just shown so far. Oh, I also forgot about Nintendo Switch 2 Tour, whatever the hell that's called. I mean, that technically is a first-party game, but I do feel like there's going to be a larger first-party game that will come out this holiday season. Obviously, you have stuff like Hyrule Warriors coming out as well that's scheduled for this year, but that's kind of a second-party game. Koei Tecmo is the one that's really making it, just with the advice and supervision of Nintendo. But I think the more interesting thing, though, has to be third-party stuff. You know, we heard about that Switch 2 games are kind of going to be rolled out into like waves and stuff like that, and I definitely feel like we've seen like the first wave of third-party games. A lot of stuff from Sega with, you know, Yakuza 0 and Street Fighter 6, Cyberpunk 2077, 2K talked about games coming to the Switch 2. You have Madden coming to the Switch 2. I think like there will be a very strong emphasis on a lot of third-party games, because I think the doors will kind of open and a lot of third-party companies can show what they are working on. For whatever rhyme or reason, Nintendo decided to only feature some third-party games for the initial unveiling of the Switch 2, but if you kind of look at the companies that are involved, they are some of Nintendo's strongest partners. Even CD Projekt Red, because of the whole Witcher 3 situation. That was a technical marvel to be running on the Switch, or the original Nintendo Switch, so I do feel like there is a good working relationship between those two companies, but I also feel like companies like Sega, Capcom, this, that, and the other, you know, these have been Nintendo partners for quite a while, and I think there is a large list of other third-party games that are indeed coming to the Switch 2 that we don't even know about yet. You know, what is Microsoft doing? We keep hearing Microsoft's got all these games coming. Microsoft's got this, that, and the other. You got to start showing them at some point in time. You know, once June 5th comes along, then I believe that there is free reign for third-party companies to be like, yes, this game is coming to the Switch 2. This game is coming to the Switch 2. This game is coming to the Switch 2. And I think you're going to see a larger variety of titles. So having a June Nintendo Direct for the Switch 2, I think is very important. But we also say a June Nintendo Direct for the Switch 2, but there's still going to be Switch 1 games as well, because since the fact that the system is backwards compatible with Switch 1 games, like, why wouldn't you show some Switch 1 games running on the Switch 2 as well? We know Nintendo is working on a select few titles for the Nintendo Switch 1, but once again, you know, with the adoption rate of the system, you know, you kind of got to look a few months down the line to see, you know, how sales are going competitively speaking to the original Nintendo Switch. And, you know, with a higher price point, the economy in the position that it is in and stuff like that, it might be a little bit of a slower start for the system. So there still will be Switch 1 games that come out that just happen to work on the Switch 2 as well. Now, will those games be potentially enhanced on the Switch 2? There's a lot of different ways you can go. Some companies are doing upgrades. Some companies aren't doing upgrades. Some companies are doing Switch 2 editions. Some companies aren't doing that sort of stuff. It really boils down to the individual company and what sort of path they are going to take. You obviously want to get your game out on the newest platform, but if you could get your game out on a platform that has, what, over 140 plus million people that still own one or have played on the system, that could be some easy money as well. I think you're going to see some interesting ports of 3DS games and potentially Wii games come over to the Nintendo Switch 1 to sort of bolster the lineup of that. And that is something that you can potentially see at a Nintendo Direct that takes place in the month of June, especially because you kind of got to start to set up your holiday stuff. And as it stands now, there's not really any Switch 1 holiday stuff. Most of the Switch 1 games that we have seen, like Tomodachi Life and stuff like that, are what? 2026 games. So I think it's very interesting. I think there's a lot of different ways it can go. And I guess, realistically speaking, you know, this isn't set in stone. It makes perfect sense for there to be a Direct happening. It makes perfect sense for it to happen in the month of June. I don't think it would happen launch week of the Switch 2, but you never know with Nintendo. But I think the week after makes much more sense. So there is kind of a precedent that is set with this, but it's also not written in stone. Nintendo might just want to roll on with the Switch 2 launch. It could be at the end of June. It could be in July. Like, there's no sort of accurate timetable for this thing to happen, but PH Brazil does have a pretty decent track record when it comes to stuff like this. So you know, it's kind of up in the air, but I thought it was worth talking about because I think everyone's hyper fixated on the Switch 2 launch, and rightfully so, but there are other things that are going to happen around the Switch 2's launch, such as more games getting announced, more games getting showcased, and, you know, possible presentations happening. Summer Game Fest starts around that time as well. So it's going to be a crazy busy time, man. But I am more than looking forward to it. I won't be sleeping much, but I am more than looking forward to it. I have some ideas for content as well. I guess let me know in the comments, like, what games you want me to cover first. Like, my hierarchy is kind of Mario Kart World, I think, will be the first game I cover. Fast Fusion will be the second game I cover. Street Fighter 6, and then Cyberpunk, maybe? But I'm kind of thinking about maybe switching Cyberpunk and Fast Fusion, because I'm familiar with Cyberpunk. I'm familiar with Street Fighter 6. Fast Fusion seems like a game I want to spend a little bit more time with because I haven't played that before. It's a brand new game. But, I mean, there's going to be, like, multiple videos every day. You know, we're going to be looking at free upgrades and crap like that because those are a bit easier to see, you know, how the games look and run. But definitely very exciting times if you enjoy Nintendo or really just enjoy video games as a whole. So let me know in the comment section down below. What do you think about this? Do you think a June Direct makes sense when it comes to what Nintendo is doing, or should they just kind of forego it? Maybe just focus on September or do a Direct whenever the hell you kind of want to? Do you think they will separate like Switch 1 and Switch 2 Directs? Do you think there's enough moxie for Switch 1 sort of specific Directs to still take place? And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Be sure to like, comment, and share. Hit the bell as well. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Later.